20XX podcast is a journey into the singularity, year by year. Based on hard science, this series searches for what is probable and possible. No other speculative fiction changes as tech evolves step by step. Follow a roadmap that will change people into new forms of life. Every episode brings you closer to the moment of singularity. It's a slippery slope, and change increases with each year.
With sprawling legs and arms, Lenny sits in a school desk and receives the test result. An A. The VR session ends, his frosted glasses clear, and he can see other kids in desks, each immersed in automated schooling. Some kids, both boys and girls, have shaved heads. Lenny gets it. They do it because they're stuck in an underground facility. They can't speak to their parents, and no one will tell them why. These are not artsy kids, but the pressure has gotten to them. Some write the names of their hometowns on their arms, while others wear all salmon-color clothes like the character who wanted most of all to go home in the Inhabitable movie from a few years ago. Lenny has a Candy Hill AR Park token from the time he and his brother went there. He keeps it in his pocket and rubs it between his thumb and index finger when he remembers those days. Maybe if he and his brother knew they only had a couple of days before they'd never see each other again, they wouldn't have argued. Lenny isn't the sentimental type. Yet he can't resist the comfort he gets from keeping the coin in his pocket. An A on his final exam. So that was the last test of 12th grade? Not sure what to do, he stands and walks out. Octavia appears and walks alongside him. As he's grown taller, she remains kid height. He's never changed her appearance. She says, "Wow, Lenny, congratulations. You finished school. I've notified your brother. Here's your graduation package." An icon appears in his upper left. "Let me know if you have any questions." Lenny moves the icon into the waste bin. We're still stuck in the survival shelter. With a sly expression that used to intrigue him, she says, "I can't help with that." He says, "You can go." She tilts her head and smiles. "Until next time." She disappears in a cloud of mist. In the curving hall, kids play Suffocate the Gopher. It's a weird game where many sit on one and pretend to smother the one. The kid pretending to be smothered says, "What's happening? Who are you?" The ones sitting on top say, "Shut up, Gopher, don't speak." These are kids who built satellites and designed new composites in better times. Seriously, it's hard for Lenny to recognize his classmates these days. Community AR graffiti covers the walls. Someone has hand-drawn a DNA sequence that snakes all the way down the hall. It probably belongs to something real, like a section of tardigrade DNA. In the absence of windows, someone's posted looped vids of seashores. He likes to think that growing up homeless is the reason he copes better than the others. These kids have come from stable families and freak out when support systems fall apart. In the elevator, the air gets warmer as he rises. On the top floor, one of the hall lights blinks, and his animal instincts make him feel that this floor is vacant of other Humes. In the control room, he fiddles with a real-life dial on a hardware-based radio receiver he discovered in a closet. Per its instructions, he connects a wire from its back to an antenna wire in one of the network junction boxes. Searching for channels is a strange antique practice he tries with little luck. Let's face it, no luck. Every few seconds, he presses the send button and says, "Searching for Von Russo." All he gets is variations of static and sometimes some digital chatter that could be coming from his own ear canal link, or it could be the nearest toilet saying it needs a cleaning. Von did say he was going to a great town with enlightened folk who knew how to live. Of all the twists of fate, losing Von is the one reality that won't sink in. "Hello? I'm searching for my brother, Von Russo. Can anyone hear me?" His Count the Days app says that they've been underground for more than a year. Over 200 kids in probably one of the best shelters ever built. And only he, Ms. Flecky, and Grace Knotts know about the storm above. Possibly Adult 11 is still alive and hiding somewhere, in which case he'd be the fourth who knows. Should somebody tell the others? The thought makes his blood pressure skyrocket. Maybe about half the kids continue their schooling. The rest don't, now that their parents don't push them. Many disappear, probably staying in their rooms and playing the piss-poor VR games available down here. In the halls and gathering rooms, kids act sad, angry, or numb. They pull mean pranks on each other and fight. Some rock back and forth on hallway floors, scream, complain to the older kids, or visit the medical room after cutting themselves. The youngest kids speak of the boogeyman. The boogeyman caged their parents. He walks down the halls at night and gives them nightmares. Should Lenny tell them about the storm? He pushes the thought out of his head. He and Grace meet a few times in the command room to learn how it all works, but Grace doesn't show one day. He calls, and she doesn't answer his calls. This hurts a lot. He feels rejected for weeks. One day, he sees her eating dinner in the cafeteria. Red-faced, he walks to the opposite side of the room and sits to wait for a bot to bring his dinner tray. He won't speak to her. He'll have to avoid her altogether. A girl of 15 stands by the door and tells everyone who walks in, "Don't eat. Go on hunger strike. They'll have to end this experiment if we stop eating." She's used markers to draw streaks from her eyes, down her face. A group of 5 kids cut up card decks and glue the pieces to make a painfully accurate replica of a one-factory town on one of the cafeteria tables. As Grace eats and draws math formulas in the air, first one youth and then a second come up and try to talk to her. She seems to not know they're there, and they give up and walk away. She didn't reject Lenny, she's just socially oblivious. He walks up to her and says, "Grace?" Her glasses are clear, but light leaks around them as she neglects her food, hands moving like she's playing an exciting video game, except she's chalking out lines of code or math. Clear glasses when she's in VR mode is another sign of social oblivion. Others can see her eyes swimming. He says, "Grace, I thought you were going to help me figure out the control center." A lump forms in his throat. "I've almost solved physics," she says. Her voice sounds urgent, and her movement becomes twitchy, like there's a bee buzzing around her she may shoo away at any moment. He walks away feeling confused, still hurt, but not rejected, or at least rejected along with everyone else. She always has been hard to talk to. What made him think she could become a good team player with him? Even, dare he say, a friend? An hour later, he's trying to get Miss Flecky to her feet outside her room and lead her back in. The minimal med facility treated her burns but didn't regrow her skin, so swaths of burn scars cover her face and patches of her hair have never grown back. Her head wags. With slow and syrupy movements, she tries to wave him off. A 12-year-old girl runs down the hall shouting, "Grace Knott solved physics! Grace Knott solved physics!" A commotion follows. People run down the hall, all in the same direction. What the hell does she mean? Seriously, no honest scientist would claim to have solved physics. That's like saying, "I've come to the end of discovery because I alone know the ultimate truth." Miss Flecky holds his arm. As he leads her to her bed, she mumbles, "They were so jealous of me. Everyone could tell I had a job." He ignores the sour vomit smell. "Yes, Miss Flecky." He helps her to lie down, shuts the door as he leaves, and hurries to join the others. Juno often plays her violin in an alcove branching off the 5th-floor hall. Today she doesn't. With a growing group, Lenny boards the elevator. What a relief to see so many smiles. On the assembly floor, he follows the crowd into the auditorium. Little Grace stands on stage. An AR element appears behind her that looks like a giant presentation screen. People take seats. The heads of those seated stretch forward. Pocket drones with near-silent jets fly up from hands and roam below the ceiling. Grace pantomimes, and lines of math grow symbol by symbol on the display. She says, "Sometimes translating classic physics problems seem pointless as the answers are the same. But in rewriting the entire body of physics, strange differences emerge." She seems to be here, but not here. Like a dancer who's forgotten that an audience watches, her lack of awareness of her surroundings makes her seem like a projection from another place. She dances in her mind as though her feet don't touch the ground. The last time Lenny saw the auditorium this full was when everyone came down here from the academy above. The writing on the display is all Knott's math. Each symbol has no match with classic numbers and symbols except for 0. but there are 3 zeros in Knott's math. He wants to laugh. Most of the kids don't understand what's being written. Some nod like they follow her when it's obvious they can't follow her. A few open their mouths as their brains work so hard to grasp at any point of comprehension. Some sink in their chairs as the weight of not getting it presses down on their genius kid identities. Grace's right eyebrow twitches and she beams as she speaks. It's when I translated the formulas for black holes that it got really interesting. It's well known that classic math stops working when attempting to discover what happens inside a black hole. This doesn't happen with Knott's math. Lenny wriggles in his chair as he gets butterflies in his stomach. She practically glows. Fei, tsu, wi, mai, fei, fei. And here's where classic math gets torn to shreds. Her pleasure of discovery affects everyone. The others bask in her happiness, even if it sounds like nonsense to them. A girl in a seat near him clenches her fists until the knuckles lose blood. She focuses so hard. He doesn't even try. He believes Grace has done it and hopes one day he may comprehend. For now, he watches her. Grace doesn't just know that math can work inside a black hole. She's there. By seeing the world through Knott's math, she's already inside a black hole, feeling her way around. Do the others notice that she no longer senses the world through sight, touch, and sound, but experiences reality through math? Can the others tell that she's flying, floating, zooming in and panning out on existence? What he'd give to think like her for just a day. Just a day, and his life would have meaning. Even as more people arrive, some get up and walk out. For the very young, that's understandable. The 5 to 8-year-olds get up like they've grown bored of hearing a grown-up talk. The older ones who leave hurry out or slink out. Lenny and Drawley walk down the hall. Lenny says, "I guess we have to be the parents for now. I'm sure you miss your parents." Drawley's face changes little. Yeah, he stammers. Drawley confuses Lenny. Drawley must care about the situation. He's one of the few who wants to help, but he has a hard time expressing emotion. Lenny feels like he must pry personal accounts and perspectives out of Drawley. Lenny says, "My dad died when I was just a kid. Were you close to your parents?" Drawley maintains the same look of concern he's kept for the last hour. They pass a group of kids who pit 2 AR-simulated robots against each other in the hall. The bots are both 3 meters tall. Lenny points and they walk several more steps to a cafeteria waiter bot stranded in the hall. The bipedal steps to turn left, then right, then right. Lenny runs toward it. "Damn it! I bet Nate, Liv, and Honor did this. Did you know they pulled a wall down in the daycare room?" Drawley watches the robot. "No?" Lenny pushes a pause button on the bot's elbow. "We're in a lifeboat and they're making holes in it." He grabs the bot by an arm and leads it back to the cafeteria. "I wonder what they did to it so it can't find its way back. Do you think they disabled its radio receiver?" Drawley takes the bot by the other arm. They, just removed its antenna." Lenny, they're dying." DeAndre, a 14-year-old, runs up to him. Bags under her eyes, bangs and glasses with preppy frames. Her printed shirt is buttoned to the neck, and her shoes are business formal. Lenny turns. "Can it wait until we get this bot on a charger?" She stomps her feet. "No!" She pants as her eyes grow wide. Lenny says, "Drawley, can you get the bot back?" Drawley nods and takes the bot as Lenny follows DeAndre through the hall, down a stairwell, and another hall. DeAndre says, "It's an unknown sickness." She shakes her head, inwardly rejecting the situation. Outside the med room, kids form a line against a wall. They lie on the floor, sit cross-legged, or stand awkwardly. Something is wrong. She says, "See how they tremble?" A boy leans against the wall, holding his arms and letting his head hang with his chin rested against his chest. Lenny walks up to him. "Hey, how are you feeling? Why are you here?" The boy lifts his head. "I feel sick. My guardian told me to come here." Fine trembling pass over his face and arms. In the med room, arms hanging from the ceiling over all 6 beds examine patients. A bed gets taken as soon as the previous patient is told they can go. A Dr. Avatar says, "You need to visit the Green State Hospital." "How many are here?" 50. They shake visibly. DeAndre says, "This shouldn't be happening." Lenny's head nods as he counts. "Are they all children? Hey, how old are you?" A boy looks up. 7. They all look about the same age. That's weird. These are the same kids that caused a stir in the school for geniuses because they're noticeably smarter than older kids. Not older, ordinary kids, but older, unusually brilliant kids. It's normal for these children to take classes. Older kids are in when the older kids are already speeding toward college level. Lenny steps up to the nearest bed. "Medbot, tell me more about your last diagnoses." The patient has difficulty getting off the bed. "I want my mommy," she whimpers. The doctor avatar says, "I found symptoms but can't conclude what's causing them. An advanced examination can be done at Green State Hospital." Lenny turns to DeAndre. "I don't know what we can do. We can help them back to their beds." They talk to the kids in the hall. The ones who can walk need convincing to go back. "My guardian told me to come here. I don't want to go back to my room where I'm alone." Some kids tremble so badly they have trouble walking. DeAndre says, "Maybe we can bring them blankets and help them get comfortable here." Lenny's phone rings. "Hello?" Drawley appears in AR. The only time Lenny sees Drawley make eye contact is when he calls. Behind him, soot stains and blast scars mark the walls of the control room. I found where we get our power from." He air gestures. A screen appears in Lenny AR. It has meters, dials, and an animated diagram of weights hanging on cables in a long shaft. It's gravity power storage. The weights slowly fall, powering a generator that gives us power. Lenny says, "I've heard of those." Drawley says, "We have 5% power left. The power will run out. I don't know when. It depends on how much power we use." He pulls up a new window. "These are our food stores. We've eaten through 2/3 of them." Lenny says, "That means we have..." He pauses as he hears a phone ring. "I'm getting a call. Half a year? Drawley, I'll call you back." He takes the call. A 12-year-old with elaborate braids appears in AR. She says, "Is this Lenny? I was told I should call you." Lenny says, "What is it?" He watches DeAndre carry blankets. The girl in AR says, "My roommate is dead." He closes the power supply window. "What is your room number?" She says, 1318. He says, "Hang tight. I'll be right there." As he walks past the trembling children, he sees Ms. Flecky drag herself down the hall. Her eyes droop and her puckered mouth frowns. Stains blot her single-use printed pants and button-down shirt. She holds her wrist, which drips blood onto the floor. A cleaner bot cleans up behind her. Lenny's voice rises. "Ms. Flecky, you can't keep doing this." She pushes past him. "Let me go." He holds up his hands, but is reluctant to touch her. The beds are all taken. She waves DeAndre out of the way and enters the med room. "Screw that. I need a doctor. One of you is going to need to get up." Children look at her as they wince with internal pains. DeAndre says, "Miss Flecky, you have to wait." Miss Flecky hisses, "Can't you see I'm bleeding to death?" Lenny says, "She does this so the medbots will give her painkillers. Miss Flecky, we need to reserve the..." "DeAndre, can you deal with this?" DeAndre nods. When Lenny reaches room 1318, the door is open and the only person in the room is alive, the girl who called him. He says, "What happened to your roommate?" The girl with bug-eye type AR glasses says, "Robots came and took her." He says, "What? Where did it take her? How long ago?" The girl shakes her head as tears run down her cheeks. "Just before you got here." Maybe he can catch up to the robots. As he runs through the halls, he makes a call. "Drawley, have you found any system for moving dead people?" The AR face map of Drawley says, no, I'll look." Ahead, a general-purpose bipedal bot tries to open a door that won't open. Running past a door, Lenny hears a girl's horrified screaming. His feet slide as he stops, fists cinched and shoulders high. "Bot, break the window on the door." Because Lenny has control center access, the bot pulls its arm back and punches the narrow window on the door. Glass shatters as the bot's hand, fingertips first, breaks through. The screaming from inside the room stops. "Bot, step aside." Through the window, he sees two figures in the dark. The back legs of a chair jammed behind the door handle stops the opening mechanism from working. Careful to avoid broken glass, he reaches in, pulls the chair off the handle, lets the chair fall, and opens the door. The bot follows him into the classroom. Lenny says, "Lights on." The room lights up, and on the floor, Cavan, a 9th grader, sits on top of a 10-year-old girl. His hands still pressed down on her mouth as he leers at Lenny. The bot steps forward. "Get off that young femme." It takes Cavan by the arm and pulls him up. The girl hits Cavan twice, grabs her glasses off the floor, and runs out of the room crying. She has scratches on her arms and her hair is all messed up. The bot drags Cavan toward the door. "I'll take him to time out." They step on the broken glass. Baffled about what to do about Cavan, Lenny follows. DeAndre will know what to do. He'll speak to her about it. He resumes his search. Cries and moans come from the cafeteria as he nears. Children hurry out of the cafeteria, sobbing, wailing, panicking. What is going on? Fleeing kids knock into him. Others crowd the doorway. Inside the cafeteria, a throng of kids gather around a wall screen. Some tremble like those in the med room. Nate, Liv, and Honor stand against the wall by the screen and face the audience. Nate announces, "This is what it's like outside." He holds a finger out at the screen, showing a live cam of 100-kilometer winds carrying flying wreckage past the ruins of skyscrapers and high-rises. In the hard light, twisters rise and break off the land that looks like a vast landfill. "This is why we're down here. This is why you can't reach your parents." The mop of Nate's jet-black hair bobs as he shifts his head about. Liv watches with an air of authority, while Honor arches one eyebrow and nods slowly. Kids swoon and faint. Some curl up on the floor and shake with sobs. The cries and utterances of despair blend into a soup of unholy sounds. Lenny is 19. The average oldest age is 15, so he towers over the crowd as he pushes his way to the front. "Stop this! Stop this right now!" The smiles crack on the three faces in the front. Nate tries to retort, but his voice catches and he coughs. Below the screen, a hole has been made in the wall and wires hang out. A game block, spliced to the wires, hangs against the wall. Lenny grabs the game block and rips it from the wires. The screen goes black. Liv steps up against him. "You can't take that, that's mine." But her voice sounds windless. Lenny steps around people as he leaves. Wires from the game block dangle from his hand. Liv calls out, "That belongs to me." What's going to happen now that the kids know there's no hope? It was bad before. He stomps away. He needs space. The long hall curves and becomes less crowded the further he gets. A femme shouts, "Give that back!" It's the three running to catch up with him. Their feet hit the floor hard. "That belongs to her." He keeps marching. When they're right behind him, he stops and turns around. They wave their arms as they put on the brakes. Their indignant expressions burn with anger. Lenny holds the game block up so that any of them could jump forward and grab it. His accent changes to the one he had as a street orphan. "Do you like to break things?" With confusion, they look at each other. "Do you like to break things?" He holds the game block in front of Liv's face. "Follow me." He turns around and walks. They protest as they follow, jumping around him like chihuahuas around a Great Dane. "Just give it to us. It has all our hacking software." He reaches the elevator, pushes the button, and waits. They grow quiet. The doors open and they all enter. Honor says, "Where are we going? Are you going to give it back?" He presses the button for the second from the top floor, floor 1. The three stand close together, sometimes scowling at him, sometimes glancing at each other with worried faces. He holds the gaming computer at his side. His stance is loose and conveys that he's ready to go off. When he lived on the streets, getting into scuffles was just part of life. No one at the school has seen this side of him. The elevator stops, and the doors open. He strides through the empty curving hall. They head for the cylinder lift, the 12-story elevator that carried everyone down here. The top floor of the cylinder hasn't changed much. A stepladder lies on its side near the circular wall. A wheeled box of tools and ceiling panels rest near the ladder. Spaces where the panels were removed from the ceiling reveal darkness above. Lenny stands under the spaces and points the game block up. "Can you break through there?" Now they look completely confused. Nate squints. Liv wrinkles her nose. Honor throws his head back as he looks askance at Lenny. After a long pause, Honor says, "Isn't that dangerous?" Liv says, "You'll give my game block back?" Lenny says, "Up there is our school, our old school. I have access to cams that show a lot of the school is still intact. But I'm asking a lot from you. It's okay if you think you can't." He leaves them there discussing it. Liv calls to him, "What about?" Stepping back into the elevator, he wonders what kind of software they have on this block. Those three ran the White Hat Hackers Club, so there must be some good stuff. As the elevator goes to floor 8, where the girl said she found her roommate dead, he says, "Octavia, what can you find about deceased bodies in the shelter management system?" Octavia appears and curtsies. "I don't have access to that system." Lenny grunts. "But you're my assist and I'm signed on. Never mind. Go away." Octavia winks, smiles, and disappears. He opens the control room interface in AR. Labels below the different icons indicate what they do. Accounts, cams, gray water. He looks for anything having to do with dead body disposal. Wait, here notices. When he clicks on it, the pop-up window shows dozens. He reads out loud. Deceased 4/33/12, 3:20 p.m. That was a few minutes ago. Deceased 7/32/1, 2:52 p.m. Is that today? Fire in room 120155. It looks like a bot responded to that. He clicks on the latest deceased notice and gets a block of tiny writing. Wait, a new notice says. Deceased 15140 now. It's happening on the 5th floor. He pushes the 5. When he gets off on the 5th floor, he jogs down the hall to room 522. 2 bipedals and a walking stretcher come out. A sheet covers a stiff body on the stretcher. Lenny slows and stands several doors down. One bot shuts the door. When they walk, Lenny follows. They head for the bot elevator. He tries to get on the elevator with them, but an alarm pops up. "Humes aren't allowed in this elevator. Please exit." He stays where he is. The doors close, and the car descends. It's well known that service Humes can ignore automated warning if they need to do something like take a bot-only elevator. Down the car goes. The bots sway slightly. A smart particle blanket hanging on the wall inflates when he presses it. It seems like he's going lower than he ever has before. Maybe this elevator goes to floors he can't reach otherwise. How can he tell when there are no elevator buttons? The air gets cooler, damper, and smells like wet rock. Still going down. Finally, it comes to a stop. The doors open to blackness. Crap, he won't be able to see. The bots carry the body into the darkness. He swipes to pull up apps, swiping through the alphabet. Call, fetch, global, light. There it is. Lights. He air-clicks. A feeble light on his glasses switches on, and he follows them down a passage between machines. Some machines vibrate, some hum, and some whisper with airflow. Pea-size LEDs of different colors burn bright on panels. Half-high bipedal bots stand like tin soldiers to one side. They reach a room where a Hume-length tray extends from a hatch. The stretcher walks up to and beside the tray. Flat arms under the body move the body off the stretcher and onto the tray. The flat arms retract. One of the humanoid bots pushes the tray through the hatch and closes the door. The room lights up when through the window on the hatch door flames blaze. Lenny's head droops. How many have died? As he heads for the elevator, he scrolls the notices. A lot have died. What is happening? Are people being poisoned? He's got to tell DeAndre Andrali about this. Children 7 and younger are dying. No one 8 or older has died. People wrap bodies in blankets, drag them, and place them near the doors to the robot elevator. Those who don't get sick stop playing or going to school. They comfort those who tremble. Halls and public spaces become quiet. Kids don't run down the halls, shout, or laugh. Older kids try to find the cause. They test food, water, and air. Accessing the logs of the medbots, they look for a cause that AI has missed. The hackers, Liv, Honor, and Nate, take 3 weeks to figure out how to break through the top of the cylinder lift. Once they find a plasma cutter in a supply room, they're able to cut a hole through the composite material. But once they stand on the roof, they find the shaft rises about 20 stories to a blast door high above. The walls of the shaft are as slick as polished granite. The cables, made of braided nanotubes and half a centimeter wide, would slice their hands if they tried to climb them. When they bring Lenny up there, he looks for a minute or two and kicks the wall. We need to get up there. There's our old school up there and lots of equipment we could use. I bet all of you'd love to get up there. Damn, it's hot up here. The others nod. Honor says, So what can we do? Lenny's eyes grow wide for a second. You know? Do you think you could hook up some wall monitors in the control room? Liv says, There's a control room? There's a... As news spreads of the storm that took everyone's families away, kids start organizing strange gatherings. They paint and draw figures of parents on the cafeteria walls, walk slowly around the cafeteria perimeter, and leave drawings and figurines at the feet of the paintings. The boogeyman made the storm, they say, and kids gang together to run through the halls searching for him. They keep forks from mealtimes to brandish. Together, they're safe from the nightmare maker, and if they can kill him, this nightmare will end. Lenny takes the passcode book out of hiding and shows DeAndre how to sign on for access to shelter system controls. He makes her and Drawley vow to meet every morning after breakfast in the control center. They sit at a table in the center of the room, while the hackers 3, Nate, Liv, and Honor, carry in a wide screen from the rec center and mount it on the wall. Lenny lets DeAndre explore the control room interface in their AR. He says, News Tracker is a military-grade scanner that searches for world news. The purple dots show where people are at. Resources shows you how much we have left. I think the biggest concern is we're running out of power and food. He shows a pained expression. DeAndre gasps and sits up straight. Drawley says, We only have 95 mouths to feed, down from 211, so the food should last longer. Liv looks back from where she holds the monitor to the wall. Grim. Drawley turns to her but says nothing. What about water? DeAndre asks. Lenny says, Not as low as the food supply because we bathe in gray water and reclaim water from the septic, but the fresh water tank is getting lower. I'd say power will be the first to run out. Drawley turns back to his AR interface. It looks like the biggest power draw is cooling. We could increase the temperature a couple of degrees. Lenny says, Good. Can you do that now? Drawley air mouses. Okay, Liv says, Doesn't anyone notice this is just like a school challenge? You know, one of the competitions for who can engineer the best offloading ramp for a moonship. Why don't we hold a competition for solving the power problem? There, we have the monitor working. Lenny air motions. He grabs and throws an AR element toward the monitor. A live feed starts playing. That's from inside our school, up above. He nods upward. Everyone but Drawley gets excited and moves toward the monitor. Ooh, is that the robotics center? Honor blocks Nate's view. The quantum labs are at the end of the hall. I miss it so much, Liv squeals. Her joyful sound breaks off as tears come to her eyes. Lenny switches cams to show different interiors, all seeing in night vision. One feed shows a hall with a wall missing at the end and objects spinning around. See? You can see the exterior was blown away on this floor. DeAndre reluctantly says, Is that the storm? The others remain silent. The next feed shows a food court. Tables, robots, and dried-up plants remain upright, but the lights are out, and dust dunes on the floor show that the outside weather has penetrated. Lenny says, There's plenty up there. I really think if we can get up there, we can move around safely as long as we know beforehand where the storm has destroyed the building. Liv says, Can we take the cylinder car up? Drawley says, says non-operational, and motor failure. If it did work, taking it might trigger all the systems down here to cycle down. The next feed shows the micromaterials lab. Honor says, Oh, Malcolm, that's my lab. Oh, my favorite class. Liv says, What's that by the windows? Everyone leans forward. Lenny zooms in on the windows. I think it's garbage. The others say things like, What? And no, really? Lenny has spent the most time looking at feeds from the world above. The storm has been dropping garbage on the city this whole time. I think the city is leveled and the streets are buried in garbage. A lot of trees are mixed in with Hume-made garbage. Honor says, That lab is on the second floor from street level. It might be a good thing for us. If the building is buried, we can walk around it safe from the storm. DeAndre says, I kind of remember hearing the school ran on local nuclear, like one of those small nuclear plants that fit in a building. Nate says, Shouldn't there be some kind of emergency exit? Everyone looks at each other. Nate holds his hands out. A shelter this size, What if the powered failed and the cylinder lift didn't work? How would people get out? Lenny makes motions as they search in air. Holy crap, emergency exit. Here it is, right here. He grabs and throws toward the monitor. A 3D map appears on the screen showing a door just down the hall from the control room. Lenny jumps up and runs down the hall and the others follow. Around the corner, down a narrow hall past doors, and around another corner, they come to a door with a lit sign that says, Emergency exit. They laugh. No way. Unbelievable. Do you think there'll be an alarm? Does it matter? The others look at Lenny. He steps forward and pushes. The door opens to a spiraling staircase going up a tube. Lenny enters and the others follow. Don't let that door close. The air is hotter, has a faint burn smell, and moves just enough to be felt. DeAndre says, It's kind of scary we found out about this so late. Lenny calls up the tube. Hello? The echo reveals a great height of narrow space above. The Hackers 3 are the first to venture up the exit stairs. Lenny, Drawley, and DeAndre sit in the control room and group talk with them. The control room team can see what the stair climbers see. 20 minutes into the climb, and they haven't come across anything new. The narrow stairs spiral nonstop. Curious banter dwindles to silence except for the steady panting of the climbers. DeAndre plays a crossword in Community AR and Drawley pens in a word. DeAndre nods approvingly. Lenny says, When you get up there, remember, we need food. You guys should look for food above all else. Liv says, Yes, Dad. Lenny says, We need water too. Level B15 is flooded. If we figure out some filtration system, we can make drinking water. That's one of the first things we could do. Everyone is silent for a few minutes. DeAndre says, Here we are doing all the dirty work while the star students get to mess around. Lenny darts his eyes at her. What do you mean? Creases form on her forehead. Oh, Grace Knotts is teaching Knotts physics, and guess who's attending? All the popular kids who've decided they're smarter than the rest of us. His blush burns. Why didn't I hear about this? She says. I don't know. We only talk about trying to keep from dying. It didn't come up. When do they meet? Like right now, in cylinder floor 11. Why not in a classroom or atrium? So, because they want to make it more exclusive. He grunts. I didn't think anyone but Grace understands Knott's math. Her voice has become sing-songy with sarcasm. No one does, but they like to pretend they do. Lenny pushes back in his chair. Hey guys, mind if I go check it out? You want to try to join the clicky-click? I want to learn Knott's math. The others say things like, Go ahead. Fine with me. Lenny logs off the group talk and leaves. After 10 minutes, Honor says, He'll be back. DeAndre says, They'll give him the cold treatment. The circular room is dark. Flashlights turned low, stood on the floor, and shining upward create an effect like candle lights. Grace, with a body that makes her head, feet, and hands look cartoonishly big, stands on one side of the room while 10 students sit on the other. She uses Community AR to show lines of math that glow. When Lenny walks in, Winter says, One moment, please, Lenny. This meeting is for devotees of maths. Even though she couldn't bring her Fifth Avenue wardrobe down here and must wear printed clothes like everyone else, she still frowns at everything and everyone in the world who's beneath her. Lenny's heart speeds up, and his body stiffens. His roommate, Neil, sitting in the group, glowers at him. Grace says, Lenny can join. The more people that join, the more chance someone will catch on. She doesn't notice that some bristle when she says, will catch on. Does Grace realize her well-intended meeting has been hijacked? The group sitting in mood lighting is the top clique. Everyone knows Winter is bad at math, though she's good at biochemistry. Lenny steps away from the door, joining the group. Grace points at the formula floating in front of her. At first I thought this wandering factor here was a problem, but do you know what it is? The room is silent. First Gertrude and Winter, then Neil get up and move to the other side of the group, leaving a gap between Lenny and the others. Grace, with her swimming eyes behind fishbowl lenses, doesn't notice. Lenny's skin crawls. He can feel the others paying attention to him. If he flinches or chokes, they'll notice and feel justified. What hurts is these people aren't popular for no reason. They look like the best kind of people. They look the coolest. In other words, the brightest, highest quality, and the ones most likely to be right. Lenny doesn't look rightest. He looks like a mediocre young man. Grace shouts, "This wandering factor is quantum gravity." After a pause, people in the group nod. Do any of them get it? Lenny doesn't get it, but at least he's going to pretend he gets it. Besides, he just got here. But he can't focus now. His thoughts are in spin cycle because the group thinks it's not right that he's here, and he feels the heat of their silent scorn. It isn't just that they don't want him here. They think it's wrong of him to be here. He bears the situation for 10 more minutes, but doesn't hear another word Grace utters. Counting to 3, he makes himself leave and tries not to storm out nor sneak out. He hopes it seems like he just stepped out. Those assholes. Stomping down the hall, he huffs and grunts. Those pricks. He's angry at himself for feeling like a bad person who had the nerve to invade the right people's group. If it's about exclusivity, why bother pretending it's about Knott's physics? He answers his question immediately, because of course it must be about something like Knott's physics, something the rest of the world can't get. He laughs out loudly. What are the chances that any of them will ever learn Knott's math? Then he panics. What if some of them do learn it while he's busy trying to save the shelter? If 1 or 2 of them learn it, they'll have solidified their rightness, their stupid elevation of better than all. He spins around and heads to his room. Neil better not see him go in there. A minute later, he leaves his room with the bottle of Nu Plus. This time he goes to a small practice room on the rec floor. The room has a side table, a music stand, and a chair. A window looks out to the hall. Once in, he locks the door. Pouring out the pills onto the tabletop, he finds a broken piece that's closest to 1/4. He separates that and pushes the other pills and pill pieces off the table and into the bottle. When he puts the quarter piece on his tongue, the weird sensation makes his neck muscles flinch. He can feel it saturate his tongue and jaw. He swallows and dry swallows again and again. In AR, he brings up his Knott's lesson plan. With anger and a level of determination he's never reached before, he focuses on the concepts. Each part of the math system seems unrelated to reality, as he knows it. DeAndre texts, "Are you coming back? They made it to the school." Normally, he'd head to control immediately. He texts, "I have to do something. I'll text as soon as I'm done." Then his focus pounces back on the study. The way you look does not make you who you are. Grace is a true genius, and look how ugly she looks on the outside. She makes ugly seem cool. The drug kicks in. His brain balloons, and where he saw 3 associations at once, he now can see 8, maybe even 10 associations at once. "28 hours later, exhausted, blurry-eyed, brain bruised, his energy comes crashing down. His tongue is like a dead fish in his mouth. His blood has sand in it. When he stands, his joints are those of an elderly man. His brain functions now feel stupid. Walking down the hall as people pass on their way back from dinner, the world moves too fast. This isn't a hangover so much as just him returning to his normal brain abilities and knowing the difference. He doesn't care about the junior elitists anymore. They can go on thinking they already have it instead of working to get it. Good luck with that. He's just going to sit down and rest for a minute. Putting his hand on a wall, he lowers himself to the floor. Shoes and legs walk past him. Voices sound like they come out of a tin can. He falls to a seated position and sways as his head dips forward. The bots are picking him up. The stretcher is first above him and comes closer as a bot lifts him off the floor. People stand around. He's dehydrated. "I saw him first," Lenny says. "Wait, I'm okay." He tries to get off the arms of the robot as he's dropped onto the stretcher. The bot says, "Please lie on the stretcher. You can relax. We want to make sure you're okay." Octavia stands beside him. "You okay, Lenny? I think you fainted. Fe, ta, gio, ze." In images and thoughts, his studies come back to him, but this time they mean something. Ta, mai, mi, ze, tsu, ta, ze. It all comes together like a new language, where each word can only make sense if all the other words make sense. As the stretcher moves down the hall, he looks up at bots and school kids following. "Drawley's here." He says, "You, need to drink more water." With a scratchy voice, Lenny says, "I know Knott's math." Drawley says, "You're probably, hallucinating. If you aren't hallucinating, it's probably some illusion. You'll come out of it soon enough." Lenny finds Grace in the cafeteria. She sits by herself talking, probably to her guardian. He walks up to her and quietly says, "Hi, Grace, have a minute?" She breaks off mid-sentence and without turning to Lenny says, "You left the physics talk before we got to space-time." Lenny sits. "I'm sorry, can I show you something?" "Sure." He brings up a marker board in Community AR. With quick squiggling, he writes a basic knots problem. "Here's a try-pitch for a fet, su, and tia." She starts to speak, but he writes the answer before she can. "And the answer here is z, ni, fe, ti, mi." She nods. Who can't memorize a basic problem and write it out without grasping what it means? He says, "Try me, give me a basic problem." She swipes his writing away. "The penamidi you would have seen if you didn't leave is..." She draws it out. They both stare at it for a minute. Others in the cafeteria look and point at them. He says, "Wait." He draws a symbol, squints his eyes, bares his teeth, and draws 2 more symbols. She says, "You weren't there when I discussed pentametric time." He gets a video call marked urgent. "Oh, Grace, hold on a moment." He taps and DeAndre's avatar appears. "Lenny, come quick. The hackers are in the school and got sucked down a hall." Her high-pitched voice sounds gravelly from strain. Lenny jumps up and runs. "I have to go, Grace. Talk later." After he leaves, Winter and Neil walk up to Grace as she eats. Winter says, "What's this about?" She can't keep the accusatory tone out of her voice. The problem still floats above the table. Grace says, "He was solving a problem." Winter says, "Well?" Grace slices her G chicken into visually perfect squares and chews each bite thoroughly. Winter says, "Did he get it?" Grace says, "Ot." Winter says, "What?" She stomps a foot. Grace says, 3 out of 6. Winter walks off with Neil in tow. "I knew what ot means." As Lenny runs down the hall weaving past kids, a live feed appears. It shows a hall in the school above ground. In the feed, the end of the hall opens to sky, wind, and a deluge of flying material. 3 figures cling to door frames: Liv, Honor, and Nate. DeAndre says, "They opened a door, and the wind blew out the side of the building." The transparent feed overlaps Lenny's view of RL. The swaying figures in the feed are small, but he can see choppy ripples pass through their clothes. He knows they're Hume bodies, but they look more like windsocks in a hurricane. In the elevator going up, Lenny says, "Can I talk to them?" DeAndre says, "Yes." His ears fill with wind noise. "You guys, can you hear me?" The floor-level lights change. 9, 8, 7. With strained voices, all 3 answer. "Here." "Yes." "I can." Lenny says, "Hold on, we're coming to get you." "DeAndre, are there any maintenance bots on control floor?" She says, "I don't think so." Lenny says, "Call 1, call 2 to you." The elevator doors open to the hall with the blinking light. In the live feed, the body nearest the opening to the storm slides half a meter. Honor cries, "I don't know how long I can hold on. The door cuts." Lenny runs to the control room. "Hang on, please hang on." In the control room, Drawley and DeAndre peer at him. Drawley grips the table and DeAndre wrings her hands. Her face is streaked with tears and she trembles. "I can't," Lenny says. "Are the bots on the way?" She nods. Lenny says, "You guys hang." In the live feed, the figure nearest the end of the hall slides away from the wall. Honor shrieks. His hands leave trails of blood as he slides down the hall and is carried off into the storm. Lenny runs to the bot elevator. When the doors open and 2 bots step out, he says, "S3, I want you to carry me. S10, you follow us." He lets the bot pick him up. Go down the hall, to the door with the exit sign. When they reach the door, he pushes the handle. "Take me up those stairs as fast as you can." He and the bots climb the stairs. "Faster, go faster." The bot says, "I can't endanger you." Lenny jumps down from the bot's arms. "Crap, follow me." He runs up the stairs as fast as he can. "What floor are they on?" DeAndre says, "They're on the 10th floor. They were going floor to floor looking for food stocks." After 10 stories, he slows even though he's doing everything he can to push his speed. After the next 5 stories, he can't go half as fast as he started out going. He hasn't even reached ground level yet. Breath heaving, he says, "S3. Carry me." An agonizing 20 minutes pass as the bot carries him up the stairs, and he watches the 2 huddled forms in the windy hall. Every time the memory of honor blowing away plays in his head, it feels like a ton of wet mycrete lands on his heart. He says, "Do the elevators work in the school?" DeAndre moans, "No." Sweat drenches Lenny's shirt. "I think I need a rope. Do you know where I can find a rope up there?" Drawley says, "There are our emergency closets on each floor. You, may find a rope ladder or..." Nate's screeches sound like metal scraping on pavement. On the feed, the body nearest the camera falls away from the door. Lenny, DeAndre, and Drawley watch in horror as it knocks into the second body. Liv cries out. The first body knocks the second off her door. They slide, slowly at first. Liv and Nate yell at each other. In the next moment, they're whisked away, spiraling. Their cries and screams continue for many seconds before cutting out. Clank, clank, clank. IRL. The robots continue up the stairs. DeAndre says, "Lenny." Clank, clank, clank. "Lenny, I think..." Lenny goes limp in the arms of the robot. His eyebrows quiver and he shakes his head ever so slightly. He feels like a failure. Guilt jabs at him. Why did he ever think it was a good idea to let children go up there on their own? Drawley sets the shelter temp to 10 degrees hotter than before. The temperature of the subterrane surrounding the shelter isn't much hotter, so cooling units switch on 1/10 of the time, reducing power usage. Kids complain for a week or two, but get used to it. Almost all the youngest are gone now. Less than 100 feels like a lot less than over 200. Only 2 7-year-olds remain. The rest are 9 to 17, and then Lenny is the one 19-year-old. DeAndre organizes an assembly service for those lost in the last year. Photos of kids lost are posted in Community AR on a wall in the main meeting hall. Under honors, Liv's and Nate's photos print says, "The first to venture out of the shelter to find food and water." A soft instrumental plays as kids arrive and sit. People sit in their cliques. Lenny sits with DeAndre and Drawley. Grace sits off by herself. DeAndre walks to the front of the stage and faces the audience. "We have all had a difficult year, a difficult 2 years. Everyone here has lost someone. We all must make it through our sadness. When we think of those we miss, our love for them continues. It is good that we remember them. We can keep our memories of them alive. When you think of those you miss, know that they'd want us to stay alive. They'd have done anything to keep us alive. It is up to you now to stay alive and help each other. We are family now, more than ever before. Let's say it together. We are family now." People in the seats repeat, "We are family now."